Hello, and in today's video we're doing a final Game Week 1 team selection video for FPL 2022 to 23. You might have seen that at the same sort of time a few minutes ago I did a video explaining my team at that stage and also talking about some crazy FPL predictions ahead of the new season. I still stand by those, but I'm afraid this is my updated team because it has changed since I last recorded that previous video. So this, my friends, is my final, I'm telling you, final Game Week 1 locked in 11/15 because I'm doing this one at 7 o'clock. I'm going to be at Fantasy Football Fest whilst this is going on. So I thought I would give you an updated, locked in version ahead of the 8 o'clock kickoff at Selhurst Park. So before we do anything, let me tell you that the current code across the screen is the one you need to use. So I'm going to be doing it this season where basically you're going to have to put in your team before the first month of the season. So what I mean by that is by the time that August is done, the league entry will be shut. So therefore, time is running out, people. If you know someone that likes to play fantasy football, and specifically Fantasy Premier League, go to fantasy.premierleague.com, register your team for the first 3 game weeks at least by then, and go into join leagues and choose private league, invitational leagues, and then type in this code to join the league because you're going to want to for the bragging rights, but also for the prizes as well. So let me just, first of all, before I do anything else, make sure that I've set it in that league to make sure that you have to join by Game Week 3. So we'll just go into it and we'll just make sure we have actually done that. So bear with me, people, whilst I do that. Administer, here we go. Right, so I'm going to close the league to new entries by Game Week. I'm just looking at the game week deadlines here, people. So the first game week of September, well, Leicester Man United is in September on the Thursday the 1st. So I'll let that slide. So basically, you have to have logged your team into the game by game week 6. Now, that is a long time for you to put in your teams. So if you were feeling fruity and you wanted some good players in your team in the league, and you've only just done it, and you're ready for the Everton Liverpool on the 3rd of September. Sorry, but if you've not already registered by the end of Game Week 5, or how should I do it? By the start of Game Week 6 or the end of Game Week 5? I don't know. Maybe Game Week 3 is enough time. It could be, to be fair. Yeah, I tell you what, because of the fact that it makes more sense, I'm going to do it by Game Week 3 because otherwise it's just, there's got to be that kind of dash to get there and it makes it more fun if we do that. So yeah, that's what I'm going to do by Game Week 3. So the deadline for Game Week 3, people, I can tell you right now, is Saturday 20th of August. If you haven't already registered your FPL team by that day, what have you been doing with your time? So make sure you register your team by then. I'm just setting it now so that the league is open until then, but after that it shuts. So be quick, be hasty, and join the league. It is called FPL Yellow Army's Loyal Legion. So you can keep up to date with this FPL league and the standings with my YouTube channel that you're watching now, but also on Twitter at RobertoHollis9 is where you can follow me, and that will be kind of a place to find out about the league as well. So yeah, should be really good this season. I'm looking forward to it. But as I say, scoring. Oh, no, that's scoring. Hang on. Close the league to new entries. Oh, no. I've just realised that thing of like scoring game week 1 to 3 was not actually about closing it to entries. Yeah, okay, fine. Well, in that case, forget what I just said. I'm going to leave it up to entries, and then I'll close the league to new entries when it gets to game week 3, but I don't have to schedule that in now. Okay, you've got the code there, 69FEQI. But what are the FPL prizes? What are you playing for? Well, you're playing for bragging rights. That's obviously the only important thing. But there are other things to play for. So, listen up, people. I have had a little look at who's joined the league so far and what it's looking like ahead of the first game week of a new FPL 2022 to 23 season. Thank you for joining the league. I really do appreciate it. And keep the entries coming. What I'm going to do is sort into a little mini table, and therefore it won't have it on the actual league because I've not separated them yet. But basically, I'm going to have a separate table like drawn up on a Google Slides or something running where you've got all the people of all the people that join the leagues. The people with the highest rank from last season are going to be separated off from the people with the lowest rank, and they will form the top division, and then the rest will be in the second division. And then basically the way it works is if you finish in the bottom three of the top division this season, then you get relegated to the second division. If you finish in the top three of the second division, you get promoted to the first division next season. That's how it will work. And basically that's what I'm going to do next season is I'm going to actually properly make a league called Second Division. That will come next season once I've worked out who's got relegated, who's got promoted. So basically that's how it's going to work. I say promoted. There won't be a third division, so it's more relegated. But basically for now, it's going to be all one division, but it will be much clearer when I actually make the league next season. So forget this season, but one season is enough. And I will update you who's on the first division, who's in the second division on my Twitter, so you know where to follow me. But league prize. The league prize, if you can win my mini league, that is FPL Yellow Army's Loyal Legion, you will get to feature on my end of season review that I'll do sometime in the summer whenever I'm free. And that'll be like me looking back across the season, each game week, the pattern of my season. But I'll also have a little look at your pattern of your season and why you won your why you won the league, right? Basically, for this mini league. So, and I'll also give you shout outs across all the socials, so you can get a bit more of a influence and a bit more of a shout out for your achievement. And then the last thing is that there will be a League Cup, so I can tell you when that will actually come into play. So the FPL Yellow Army Loyal Legion Cup will be happening in Game Week 32. So then in Game Week 31, the fixtures will be determined at the end of that Game Week 31. And then basically, there's something about some teams will receive a bye in Game Week 32 if they get a good score in Game Week 31. But generally, most teams will be drawn a fixture in Game Week 32 where they're head-to-head against someone else. And then it will just kind of, like a usual cup works, it will just be knockout. And then whoever wins that League Cup, as I was saying about with I'll actually make some League 1 kind of Division 1 and Division 2 next season. When I talk about having that Division 1, whoever was in Division 2 on my Google Slides, they will be in Division 1 if they get to win the cup. So that's quite simple. And that's what we're going to do this season. So I hope you all get excited by that. Spread the news of the details of the divisions. And yeah, we will get cracking on with my team selection. And I know you're going to say, oh, but you flipped and flapped. So does everyone. They changed it last minute. And this is the team I'm pretty certain that will be shown around on Friday night at Fantasy Football Fest. So enjoy it. Feast your eyes on the Game Week 1 team of a future FPL champion. Just saying that. But yeah, let's get into it. So we're going to properly preview Game Week 1 and talk about who am I worried about. He's one of them. I'm also worried about, obviously, not having an 8 mil midfielder. But not all these price points are essential. You know, you look at some of the price points and you think, oh, it'd be lovely to get there for flexibility. But would I rather have a flexible squad or a squad that's going to score the most points in each game week? Well, yeah, okay, you'd argue flexible because then you don't have to kind of restart pretty much every game week because you're like, oh, I need to sort out my whole team again. But I like to take things one game week at a time because with FPL, things change so quickly. So it's quite hard to book things in. Sometimes it works, and there is kind of logic and value to it, but other times it's just not worth it. So for me, I'm happier with the unbalanced formation, but better kind of starting players to start the new FPL season. So let me talk about my Game Week 1 lineup. Here we go. Back five that is looking pretty saucy, I can't lie. By the way, current time of recording, 6,113,283 players in the game. So not quite the 9 million it was last season, but that might improve. And a lot last minute people coming in. But let's talk about my Game Week 1 team then. Here it is. My first player to talk about is Edison Santana de Moraes. Now, you're going to say, wow, that never usually happens in fantasy football. A premium goalkeeper. But yes, I'm going for it because a lot of people have recently been talking about the Leicester goalkeepers at 4 million each. Now, if they had good fixtures, I'd probably be straight there. But they don't. But add to that the fact that they are both very inexperienced. They're not going to get many points. And why wouldn't you just have someone better? So I get the point of saving money to make the rest of your team better, but for 4 million goalies that I just don't think are going to get too many points, it's not worth the point, whatever it is in terms of money that you save, because the points aren't going to come from these players. So I'm going for Edison, mainly because I want double City going into Game Week 2 against Bournemouth, because Bournemouth are just going to be leaky in that game, in my opinion. And for me, the best double two is Edison and Cancelo. Now, I have flirted with a few different options. Diaz and Cancelo, Walker and Cancelo, Cancelo and Grealish, Cancelo and Mahrez. But the midfielders for me, however tempting they could be, I can't go down that risk of rotation. You saw in the Community Shield even, Foden comes on, Grealish comes off, Mahrez comes off. I just can't predict it. And last season, Grealish was underwhelming. He's at a nice price point, so he's not as expensive as the 8 millions. So if he starts popping off, yes, he'll go up in price, but he isn't going to be impossible to reach to. But right now, how do I want to start the season with as few risks as possible? And I know that Edison is nailed. He's going to play every week. And look at Man City's fixtures. They are an actual joke. And it's not this thing of, oh yeah, the premium goalies are not worth it because they don't get as many points. Look at this guy's points tally over the last 5 seasons. It is actually a joke. 155 points this year. And I know you're going to say, oh, he didn't get bonus points. Well, I'm pretty sure, if I'm correct in thinking, if we just go to the stats and go to bonus points for goalkeepers last season, yep, there we go, right? This is what I was thinking. It is going to make me a bit foolish here, but what I was going to say is Alisson's at the top, right? For the same price, you're not going to get an Alisson when you want those Liverpool attackers or defenders, whereas you don't know about the City attackers. But what I'm saying is there's no way that Alisson across the season can finish on the top bonus points and that Edison can't do the same, because yes, he didn't do it last season, but they're just as good, Alisson and Edison, as each other. And for me, they've got better fixtures, Man City, than Liverpool. So for me, it just makes way more sense to go with a premium goalie. Now, I don't go anything against what people are saying about having a cheaper goalie. Fair enough, but it's not for me. I just like the fact that Edison is nailed and he's gonna get a lot of points across the season. Of course, we can change this when we wildcard at some point, because of the fact that there's Game Week 17 unlimited transfers for the World Cup. You can change your strategy, but for now, I want to start with who is, in my opinion, in the top 2 goalkeepers in the entire league. And if he was 6 million, of course, I wouldn't get him. But with the way FPL have priced the game this year, I think at 5.5, Edison is just too tempting to ignore. So Edison, look, I don't think he's going to get big hauls every week, but he's going to be a solid set and forget goalie. Now, of course, he got injured, then that would be a problem. But we've got a 4 mil that I'm going to talk about in a second that might not be too much of a problem. Now, fixtures-wise, look at this. West Ham is tough, admittedly, but it's fully worth that first game week because look what comes after. Only one game week between game week 1 and 8, only one top 6 side, and look how many home games there is there. Nottingham Forest, Bournemouth. That is going to be a lot of clean sheets, and then we can reassess when we do our wild card of the first of the season. So for me, Ederson is a no-brainer. He's actually quite lowly owned because of people going for Sanchez and Raya. I mean, under 20% owned is pretty good for a 5.5. Yes, he's expensive, but he got them points last season. So it makes a lot of sense. I'm very tempted. The rack up of Man City clean sheets this season will be unbelievable because they are one of the best teams in the league. So it makes sense. And West Ham is an interesting opposition. The only player I would be worried about is Jarrod Bowen, who taught Ederson a new one last season. But I still feel City are the strongest defence, so they're my favourite, pick in that team, and therefore that's what I'm going with: the Brazilian Ederson in goal. Now we talk about Gabriel. He's got Crystal Palace away. The reason I've gone for Gabriel is because he's looking a bit of a differential at a nice 8.6% owned. He's very good value. I thought he would go up this season. He was 5 million last season, or thereabouts. And this season he's still at 5 million. And he actually got 5 goals last season, which for a centre-back is pretty impressive, especially when you consider the fact that Arsenal last season didn't finish in the top 4. They didn't always score that many goals. And if they did score goals, it was usually coming from one of Saka or Martinelli. Like, they're not the sort of team that score that many goals from set pieces. But Gabriel did pop up with a few. And the thing I'm going to say is that Arsenal have got the best fixtures, in my opinion, because for the first 8 game weeks, they only have one top 6 team in there, just as with Man City. But for me, with all those nice green fixtures, it's looking even nicer, in my opinion, for Arsenal. And Arsenal's defence is sometimes questionable, but as I mentioned with Gabriel, he makes up for it with the attacking threat, and I think he's the 5 million option that we should all be looking at for long term with those fixtures. When you look at someone like Trippier or Cash, or even someone like Kyle Walker, who's not as attacking, Gabriel is attacking and he's got the best fixtures. So for me, it makes loads of sense. And Palace are specifically a team that concede a lot of goals from corners, so that looks really nice. And he's just one to watch this season for sure. Trent Alexander-Arnold, easy decision. He's got Fulham away. That's a great fixture. And I could definitely see him scoring big because Fulham are so leaky and he's on set pieces. So Trent Alexander-Arnold was one of my easy locks this season. Then I've got Andrew Robertson alongside him. Now, for me, it's not even a debate. Robertson is much better than Luis Diaz. And I would rather have a big at the back with Robertson in than have a more balanced team, because ultimately I think the value this season is going to be in the defenders. The fact that Robertson is only 7 million is a steal, and Trent at 7.5 is also a steal. So for me, those are 2 players that are straight in the team. With the attacking upside they have, it's really not much of a decision. But Robertson last season ended it really, really strongly, and that caught my eye. So for me, he looks a player that's going to be too good to ignore. The thing is with Robertson is that a lot of people don't have him. 12.2% owned. I mean, for a player that scored 186 points last season and every season scores around about 160 points, that is very, very good. So I'm not going to refuse that, because Diaz, sure, he'll be good come parts in the season, but he just hasn't really set the world alight in my eyes. Like, he's performance-wise been good, but at the end of last season wasn't really coming in with the FPL points. So I'm not too keen. Joao Cancelo, he's another lock for me. Easy. A lot of people underestimate this guy because of the fact that they think maybe Robertson or Rhys James is better. And the fact that he ended last season a bit quietly, people have kind of slept on him. But honestly, for me, he's just as essential as Trent. Because look at City's fixtures to start the season. That is going to be a lot of attacking returns and clean sheets. So Joao Cancelo, you're an easy shoe in here. West Ham do concede goals, and they do concede goals from set pieces. Now, of course, Cancelo doesn't usually take that many set pieces, but he will whip in crosses nonetheless. And he's just looking a very good option ahead of the new season. At 7 million, I think is one to definitely think about having. So that defence is looking really strong. And then I've got Rhys James. Now, I can't lie, I started with Rhys James in my team as soon as I saw he was 6 million. Because ultimately, I was thinking, this guy is going to be way too good to not own for that price. I thought he'd come in at 6.5 and the Chilwell would be 6, and I'd have to just maybe go with Chilwell because of the price. But James last season, yes, he got injured, but when he was fit, he was explosive, and he actually has, got a lot of ability with him at the current point in time. The problem is, of course, is that right centre-back discussion. But I think he's going to play in a back five. He's going to be the right wing back because they have brought in Kulu, and in the recent friendly against Udinese, I'm pretty sure James played right wing back, or at least they played a back five, Chelsea. So I think he's not going to be in a back four. I don't think it's going to be that as defensively minded. I think it's going to be okay. Ultimately, Rhys James is so much better in that position. So I think Tuchel would be mad to not play him there. And even if he does play right centre back, does that mean he's kind of immune from any attacking returns? No. He still has attacking kind of instincts and loves the long shot, loves the cross. Last season, he got injured, but, I think he's just going to be so strong this season. And he's close. He's close to essential. He's very, very tempting for that price, and he's just so explosive on his day. Everton away is a good fixture. Now, obviously, Everton last season were dreadful. I think they're going to go for another season of, battling with relegation. So, Rhys James, for me, is definitely capable of a haul in Gameweek 1. So, he is definitely in my team, and that is a solid back line. Now, let's talk about the rest of the midfield, shall we? In midfield, we've got Gabriel Martinelli. Now, a lot of people are saying about him, he's not as nailed as Saka. I agree. We take the risk with him, though, because at 6 million, there's not much of a risk. You can move to someone else at that value quite easily. And ultimately, he's been doing well in pre-season. He was great last season. Smith Rowe has not really been improving or, showing much in pre-season. So I think, yes, we'll have to kind of suck it up when he gets subbed off early. That's probably likely to happen. But even when he does, I don't think that's a problem because the minutes he uses on the pitch, he makes the most of, and he scores goals. And he's kind of playing as a second striker alongside Gabriel Jesus, I would imagine. So it just looks way too good to ignore. And Arsenal's fixtures, as I mentioned, are very, very strong to start the season. So I think it's one of those ones, if you sleep on him, you might regret it. If you get him in, you also might regret it because of bench and expected minutes, because of the 5 sub rule this season. But look, you can't have it all, right? I think there's more value going for that defence than there is in midfield, because I'm just not that tempted by many of the 6 to 7.5 million options, and it's too much of a stretch to kind of cut down one of these premium defenders and go for an 8 million midfielder. It's just not going to work. So therefore, Martinelli's a great value pick, and Palace are still a leaky team that, of course, Martinelli did score in this fixture a couple seasons back on the final day of Palace's reign under Hodgson at Selhurst Park. So I think this is going to be one that Martinelli hopefully makes himself a hero in. Mo Salah, it's very easy for me this game week. My captaincy is locked in for game week 1 because game week 1 record for Mo Salah is actually ridiculous. Let me tell you why. In game week 1, since joining Liverpool, he has got 11, 8, 12, 20, 17 in terms of points in every single game week 1 playing for Liverpool. Since he's come to Liverpool, he has been unbelievable. Watford away gets a goal and an assist on his debut, gets 5 shots and gets 11 points. West Ham at home gets a goal and 8 points and 4 shots. Norwich at home, 12 points, 1 goal and 1 assist. Leeds at home, a hat-trick, 3 goals, 9 shots. Norwich away, 17 points, a goal and 2 assists, 5 shots. Mo Salah on the opening day turns into a different animal, as if he doesn't do that in the season. But what I mean by that is, like, he is unstoppable. He's unstoppable most of the season, but especially in game week 1. And therefore, against a leaky team in Fulham that, come on, they are not going to be squeaky clean. They have not improved their defence overnight. I mean, they've got people like Tosin Adrabayo and Tim Ream at the back. I'm not worried about Mo Salah captaincy. Now, it's the early kickoff, yeah, sure, but arguments about the early kickoff just kind of do have a little bit of irony around them. Because when Gandhi said, never back the early kickoff, what he meant by that is the first game of the game week. Now, Palace Arsenal is the first game of the game week, so it's fine. It's not always the Saturday at 12:30, but what I will also caveat to that is, although Gandhi speaks truths when he says 12:30 kickoff captaincy is flawed, I agree, but there was a clause in that contract which said, in the small print, except from Mohamed Salah, because by now, Salah's proven that he is the undisputed king of Fantasy Premier League, so don't doubt this guy, especially against a promoted club who he loves to score points against. Neto is also in there. Now, I know he's going to be a bit of a, I don't like you sort of pick for a lot of managers, but for me, he is the best 5.5. There's no kind of shrugging away from it. Yes, he's highly owned, but I think it's worth it because the fixtures for Wolves to start the season are very good. The only spanner in the works is that Jimenez injury, which will kind of immeasurably and, clearly hurt Wolves' attack. But the point I will say is that he's more likely to play now. He can still play on the wing. Last season he was fully fit. I mean, 124 points for a Wolves player is very impressive. And for me, he just looks like the best 5.5. There's no real kind of complicated thing behind it. He's playing Leeds, who I still feel are very leaky at the back. And at the end of the day, if it's him or Bailey, I'm choosing Neto every single game, every single time, because Bailey's not proven anything to me yet. Some pre-season games are not cutting it for me. When he starts doing it in the league, maybe I'll think about it, but I can always downgrade. He's cheaper anyway, and at the end of the day, Wolves' fixtures for long term are much better than Aston Villa's, so it's a no-brainer. And he's Portuguese to add to that. So Pedro Neto, come on, do the business against the Lily Whites, or the Whites, I should say, really. Moving on then, we move to the front two of Jesus and Harry Kane. Now, Gabriel Jesus, I do not believe the ownership. It is actually unbelievable. Mohamed Salah was 72% owned, I do believe, in some game week last season. And that was the record for ownership, effective ownership across the game. Game week 1, this guy is at 74%. That breaks records, not just for game week 1 and Luke Shaw 57% owned in game week 1 last season, but it also breaks records for any game week. This guy has come out of the shadows from Manchester City as a player who wasn't going to play much to suddenly, he signed for a new club. He is the best player in the whole game. I mean, it's just unbelievable. The pricing is the reason for me, but at the same time, do we know he's going to hit the ground running? I think we do. He's already done it in pre-season. He's got great fixtures. It's just one of those things. Why would you bet against it, especially now with the ownership? So I think he is a sparkly new toy for Arsenal that will really do well this season. They've lacked a striker really since Aubameyang left. And therefore, Arsenal going to get the points in this Palace game, hopefully as well. As I say, Palace, they're not the squeakiest goalkeeping kind of team. Guaita last season was a bit shaky. And I think he's going to start ahead of Johnston, who looks injured. So ultimately, yeah, I like Gabriel Jesus for sure. It's just a shame he's so high owned because you don't gain much by him scoring. But I'm still going to get excited when you see the Brazilian hit the back of the net. And then Harry Kane, home to Southampton fixture that I just cannot miss out on. Now, for me, it's an easy decision. Bring him in, game week 2, Erling Haaland. But for me, start with Harry Kane. Because what happens if Erling Haaland gets injured game week 1? We know his injury record. And then he's got a fixture in game week 2 that he, would really have been good for. And we can't use that transfer. And then we're like, what do we do? So therefore, why would you start with Haaland? Because then you're going to have to force anything that you want. Whereas if you start with Kane and have 0.5 in the bank, let's say Haaland got injured, that gives you another option for a transfer across the whole team. So 0.5 in the bank gives you that flexibility. If Harry Kane drops in price, I don't know why he would, but let's say he did, and Haaland goes up, you're not going to be able to afford Haaland for that Bournemouth fixture that's going to be juicy. Harry Kane, is probably more likely to score against Southampton than Haaland against West Ham. So it's just a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer for me. Harry Kane loves playing Southampton, and he's not going to wear the captaincy armband because, for me, Fulham away is better fixture than Southampton at home. But he's going to wear the vice-captaincy, and maybe it'll just be a one-game week punt with Harry Kane. But for me, it's all about getting the best team each game week, and for me, that is the best team, in my opinion. So I'm loving that. Harry hopefully does the bits, and, Southampton, they are a pretty poor defence, and the whole myth about Harry Kane doesn't score in August, that's just a bit of waffle, really. He's done it quite recently, so that's my team locked in for game week 1. Let's move on to the bench. In the 4 million goalkeeper slot, it's Danny Ward. The reason is that in conferences, Rodgers has said Ward probably has more chance of getting it than Iverson. And for me, I don't really want to be starting a Leicester goalie, but if worse comes to worse and Ederson got injured, I've got a possible starting 4 mil goalie there to come in and save me. De Silva, for me, he is much better than people are making out. I think he's going to start. I think he's going to get some points, and he might even be better than his price suggests at 4.5 as an option. So I don't think the lack of midfield flexibility is a problem here if De Silva's going to start scoring points, which I think is very possible. Andreas Pereira is also nailed to start. We know he's got a bit of goal threat and he's on set pieces, so for me, it's a no-brainer to have him in. And then Archer might get a few more games here or there, but we've basically got 3 playing players, if you include Ward, on the bench, which I think is very, very decent. We think De Silva will play, we'll have to find out, but at least 2 I think is enough. You need a minimum of 2, including the goalkeeper in my opinion, because you just never know what could happen, a benching or an injury. But I think that is just the best team for Game Week 1, and it might be template, it might be boring, apart from maybe Gabriel, but still, I think it's just, why would you go risky for the sake of being risky? If you think this is going to be the best team for Game Week 1, pick the best team. The whole point of being differential and going against the template is once we've seen a few matches. There is no problem with going template to start a season because it actually gets the most points. So therefore, that is my team, locked in, lovely jubbly. And for me, it's not even a decision for the bench. De Silva's first sub because Andreas, Liverpool's a hard fixture, and Archer, the chance of him starting and coming on against Bournemouth, maybe it's a bit too early to put my trust in him. So, that is the team. I'm liking it, and that is my team kit as well. Hanging by a thread is ready and locked in for Game Week 1. I'll be at Fantasy Football Fest as you're watching this, and do tune in. Sky Sports Premier League for Palace versus Arsenal at Selhurst Park. Let's do this!